President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber continues to hear testimony of witness Sao Sa and begins to hear testimony of a civil party, that is to TCCP 241. Ms. Jessie Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Grazie, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nunchi is present. In the holding cell downstairs, he has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to conclude her testimony today, that is Madame Sao Sa, is present in the courtroom. We also have a reserved civil party today, that is to TCCP 241. Thank you. President, thank you. And before I hand the floor to the parties to put questions to this witness, I'll provide the oral ruling per request by Noon Jie. The chamber has received a waiver from Noon Jie dated 7 December 2015, which states that due to his health, headache and back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his right to participate in and be present at the 7 December 2015 hearing. He affirms that his counsel has advised him about the consequences of the waiver, that it cannot in any account be construed as a waiver of his right to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented to or admitted by this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Noon Jie by the duty daughter for the accused at the ECCC, dated 7 December 2015, which notes that Noon Jie has back pain when he sits for long and recommends that the chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Noon Jie his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Noon Jie can follow. This applies to the whole day. And now the chamber hands the floor to the co-prosecutor to put questions to the witness. And the combined time for both the co-prosecutors and the lead co-lawyers for civil party is 1 session. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honors, Counsel, civil parties, and Madam Witness. Madam Witness, I want to continue to ask you about some other people from your village and area that you may or may not know, and whether you have information, either saw or heard information about their fate. And continue to tell us if you do have information or if you don't. You mentioned, I asked you late on Thursday about Kun Mon and his wife. You said you knew them, but you didn't know her fate. Do you know what happened to Kun Mon's wife's mother, Lee Thi Hai, and her siblings?
Witness, which mom are you referring to? Or are you referring to Mon Hu? It's not clear to me.
Thank you. I'm referring to Kun Mon, who had a wife who had a Chinese father, Seng, and a Vietnamese mother, Li Thi Hai. The name of the wife was Seng Hor. Do you recall that, gentlemen?
Yes, I recall that Seng Hu lived near where I lived, and she married Mont and went to live in Zwei Antor commune. However, I did not know about the situation involving their family since they moved to live with her husband in another commune.
Have you ever seen the wife or her mother, that's Kun Mon's mother-in-law, or the wife's siblings since the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
We separated after that. That is, after she got married and left the village.
Yes, but my question is, all these years later, have you ever seen or heard from her? Since 1979.
No, since we separated, I never saw her returning to visit the village.
Kun Mon said this in a article that's E3/2589, based on his interview with DC Cam. He said out page in Khmer 00224670, in French 00623348, and in English 00224673, that it was only later that he came to understand the reasons for his wife's arrest. If a person was related by blood to a Vietnamese, they would be killed. He mentioned his brother-in-law, Seng Ban, as an example. All of his family members were killed except a son named Mao, who hid in a cornfield and survived. Kun Mon's relatives and neighbors report that they knew of no mistakes anyone had made, but that Vietnamese wives and children were killed. Mon's mother-in-law, Li Thi Hai, sister-in-law, Seng Tieng, and brother-in-law, Seng Kei, were also killed. Do you have any information about that after hearing that? Do you recall anything else that you could add?
Regarding Ihai family, I only know one who was the father, and he had his wife, a Vietnamese wife, and the children were taken away and killed. I do not know anything about the mother, that is Mon Hu, since we separated. And I only know about one Mao, as I just told you earlier.
Okay, thank you. So let me move on then. And ask you about a few other persons who were named by Kun Mon. And this is at E35325 0082 4184 in English. In Khmer, it's 004551 and in French 008692 84. Did you know someone, a new person called Ta Prun, who had a dark complexion and a Vietnamese wife? Does that ring a bell to you?
No, I do not know Taprung. I do not know which village he lives in.
Okay, one more name going to the next page in all three languages. I might need my colleague to pronounce it.
Lajni is the name.
Do you know that person?
I do not know largely. I do not know which village this person lives in.
Now, then I'm going to move on and ask you about some other names mentioned by a woman named Yim Mui.
The name is Jim Mui.
And that document is E37783. Before I ask you these questions, just to see if you know this person, apparently the family had lived in An Lang Tria in the 1960s. Her mother's name was Hai and was mixed race Vietnamese. Do you know this woman at all?
I am really not sure. Is Mui the daughter of Grandma Hai?
Yes.
I know that Mui, she got married and moved to live in Graham. However, she later on passed away and she had her children still living in Phnom Penh.
Do you know what happened to her younger brother, Guy, younger sister, Tieng, and her mother, Hai, and her younger sister, Hu?
We separated after 1979, so I do not know about her family situation, and we have never met since. I only knew that Hu was killed, and after that I have not received any news from this family.
Okay, let me read then from the statement that she gave. And in Khmer, this is at page 00238898. In French, 00281807. And in English, 0024216. She stated that in approximately 1977, she went to transplant rice seedlings. All 7 of her children lived in the house as normal. Her husband was a tailor in Shrey Graham village. She says one day during that same year, a man named An, Chok An, a villager at Po Riang village, who went back and forth between there and Sva and Tor village, told her husband, all of your wife's family have been taken and killed. Those killed were as follows. Yemoy's younger brother, Guy, younger sister, Tiang, who were working in a mobile unit, were killed first. Her mother, Hai, her younger sister, Hu, the wife of Kun Mon, and 3 nieces and nephews were killed 2 or 3 days later. Do you have any information about that, other than I believe you told us you heard about one brother?
I did not with them, so I cannot tell you anything else. I lived in a different village. They lived in Pirang while I lived in Lung Tri, which was far. Even Mon in Swan Do, although it was closer, but I could not go there. And during the Khmer Rouge regime, we were prohibited from going to another village. Every morning when we woke up, we had to go to the work site.
Thank you very much. And thank you for explaining to us what you do know and do not know. So I want to ask you then, I believe, just about one more statement. And this is from a person who now would be in his 70s, named Mom Choi. His wife's name, Nguyen Pan.
Mom
The name is Mom Choi and Niang Pan.
Those people. Do you know Mon Choi?
No, that name does not ring a bell. I do not know which village the person lives in.
Did you know a midwife in Anlang Trea village named Yea Toi?
ឈ្មោះយាយដាក់
The name is Ye Da.
យាយដាក់
មិនឈ្មោះយាយដាក់
There were two, Ye Ba and Ye Duck. Duck was the mother of Ba, who was a midwife, and she actually saved the lives of many people there. She mostly saved villagers in Lung Tri and in other villages through her midwifery practice. And the knowledge passed on from the mother to the daughter. However, she was taken away and killed, and nobody knew that she was taken away and killed. Only later on we learned that her house was empty and nobody was there.
What was her ethnicity? This woman that was taken away and killed.
She was Vietnamese originally, and since I grew up, I saw her living in a village, although I did not know where she originally came from. However, as I said, she saved many lives in my village.
And the lives that she saved, were those people all Vietnamese? What was the ethnicity of those whose lives she saved?
Regardless of Vietnamese or Khmer ethnicity, whoever came to her for help, she would save them all.
Do you recall any period of time when the local cadres from your area Revang were replaced by cadres from another part of Cambodia?
No, I don't. I saw them coming, but I did not know from where they came. I was an ordinary villager. I only saw them and I did not dare even look at their face, let alone asking them where they came.
Well, can you explain a bit about what happened when you say you saw them coming? What happened when these other people came?
We, the ordinary villagers, we were not allowed to actually meet them, and I spent most of my time in a rice field, and I only returned to the village for lunch at 11:30, so I did not know about their activities.
Did these people speak with the same accent as those from your village or with a different accent?
I did not meet them and did not hear what they said. I met only those from Andong Trier commune, so only the people from those commune that I knew that they were Khmer.
The disappearance of those who were Vietnamese or part Vietnamese that we've talked about over since Thursday, did this occur, if you know, continue to occur after these people arrived or not? Do you know?
Yes, they disappear one after another, and when the Vietnamese were about to liberate, and then there were no more disappearance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I turn over the witness to the civil parties. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Witness.
Thank you. Mr. President, thank you. The lead lawyer for the civil party, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to all of you. Good morning, Ms. Witness. My name is Marie Guiraud, and I represent the collective of civil parties. And I have a few very short questions to put to you, questions of clarification in relation to what you explained to us last Thursday. You told us on Thursday that there were mixed blood children and children from mixed blood marriages within your village in Along Tria. And I wanted to know if it was possible to physically recognize the mixed blood children, and if that was the case, what were the physical features that allowed people to make that distinction?
In the village, I knew only about those in Andong Tria village. Some had wife and some had children, and I knew about them. I did not know about those living in other village. I knew only those in my village. Like Van Mau, he had a Khmer wife, and I knew that he's a mixed blood. And his child, he brought from Vietnam, so I knew that she's ethnic Vietnamese, so I knew only those in my village. I did not know about those in other village.
Je vous remercie. Je ne vais...
Thank you. I'm putting questions to you only
on what happened in your village, I would like to know whether it is possible to physically recognize persons who are of mixed origin or Vietnamese and those who are Khmer in your village. Did they resemble one another physically? Did they have the same physical features or they were different?
ចាមានរូបរាងកាយដូចគ្នា
Yeah, they look similar. They had dark complexions, and I knew that they had either ethnic father who is Vietnamese or mother who is Khmer.
Quand vous dites qu'ils étaient plutôt...
When you say that they were dark, are you talking of Métis children or children whose parents were Khmer?
សំដៅលើឪពុកម្ដាយ
I refer to their parents. If their parents are with ethnic Vietnamese, we say that, oh, the children of Vietnamese. So it's what we heard from one another. So people in my village said about that. So it's what people in the village said.
Juste sur cette question de...
Still, as regards the skin color which you referred to, in order to properly understand your testimony, regarding children who are half caste or Métis and who had Vietnamese parents, were they darker? Were they more dark-skinned than the others, or they had the same skin color?
បើនិយាយ
If talking about their skin, for example, I myself, I look like my mother, so I had white skin, but like one Mao, he had dark complexion. He looked like his father. So it doesn't mean that only those who has white skin are ethnic Vietnamese children. It did not mean like that.
C'est très clair. Je vous...
That is very clear. Thank you. How then could you know in the same village who had one or two Vietnamese parents from those who had Khmer parents? In Am Long Tria, how would you know who was of Vietnamese origin and who wasn't?
In my opinion, I thought that the village chief also did some report about the ethnicity of the villagers. But for me, in my village, I knew those who had Vietnamese wife or Vietnamese husbands. But in Angka, in the village chief, I think they may have done some report about the ethnicity of the villagers. That's why people in the higher ranking in the Angka, they knew something about the ethnicity of the people in the village. So I knew about when they got married to ethnic Khmer, and then their history was known to the villagers, and people talk about that, and that's what all I knew about.
Quand vous dites que vous pensez que le...
When you say that you think the village chief issued a report, is that something you heard of during that period, that there were reports written by the chief?
Mr. President,
thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honours. I wanted to make the observation already a little bit earlier because I heard the witness say when she was answering the previous question, in my opinion, the village chief may have done certain things. I understand the follow-up question, but I think maybe it would be in the benefit of for all parties that the witness be instructed only to say the things that she actually knows, rather than giving her opinion on what might have been the case.
C'était précisément le sens de ma question.
That was precisely the thrust of my question, Mr. President. I would like the witness to react by telling us what she knew at the time and not what she thought she knew. That is what I am driving at. Madam Witness, during that period, did you know that the village chief had established reports? Is that information that you had in your possession?
When they did the report, they did about the ethnic Khmer. I did not know about the ethnic Vietnamese.
Vous nous avez parlé de votre...
You have talked to us about your mother, and you said that your mother was half caste, half Vietnamese. Tell us, did your mother speak the Vietnamese language?
She did not speak Vietnamese, but when Vietnamese people talked to her, she understood.
Depuis jeudi, vous nous parlez...
On Thursday, you talked about other half-caste people who lived in An Long Tria. Do you know whether those persons spoke Vietnamese during that period?
All half-blooded children, they did not speak Vietnamese. Since they were born until now, no one of them could speak Vietnamese.
Je vous remercie. Vous nous...
Thank you. On Thursday, in answer to a question put to you by the National Co-Prosecutor, you explained that the Vietnamese and half-caste people in your village were led away at a point in time to the lower part of Cambodia, and you said that you were indeed sent to Vietnam. I would like to read out to you what you stated on Thursday and put some questions to you regarding that. You stated at 15 hours 15 seconds as follows: I saw that they were assembled and they were evacuated to the lower region of Cambodia. Those who were from mixed marriages or families were continually assembled and sent away by boat. As for single families, they sent those single families one at a time, and they kept disappearing. Do you remember making that statement on Thursday?
Yes, I did.
Pouvez-vous expliquer à la Cour?
Can you explain to the chamber, to the best of your recollection, how those persons were assembled and evacuated? What do you remember as regards those events?
They assembled people and were sent to somewhere. So each family were collected and sent away, and they disappear. And sometimes they were sent at night time, some at daytime. I did not know much about this because I worked during the day. Only when people told me that they were sent away. So this is what I heard from people.
Est-ce que vous saviez à l'époque?
Did you know during that period who assembled the people? Were they cadres or militiamen in your village and Long Tria, or those persons came from outside of the village to organize such evacuations? Do you remember anything about that?
I did not know about that. I did not know who came to assemble people. I just only knew that people disappear.
Est-ce que vous avez entendu parler à...
Did you at any point in time hear anyone in your village or outside of your village talk of language tests that were conducted to find out whether those persons spoke Vietnamese or not. Is that something you knew during that period?
អត់មាន
There were none language tests.
Je dis que les personnes qui étaient
On Thursday, you stated that the persons who were assembled and evacuated were evacuated to Vietnam. How did you come by such information, and how can you say today that they were evacuated to Vietnam? On what basis can you say today that they were evacuated to Vietnam?
ចេះតែឮតគ្នា
It's only what I heard from other people said that those people were sent to Vietnam.
et ces personnes qui vous ont
And those persons who told you that, were they living in An Long Tria village at the time? Did people talk about that in the village, that people were evacuated to Vietnam, or that is something you learnt about subsequently after the end of the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
ចេះឮត
Yeah, it's what I heard from the villagers that those people were evacuated to Vietnam and they were sent back to their home country in Vietnam. So it's what people said.
et ma dernière question
And this is my last question to you, Madam Witness. You talked of villagers who said that those persons had returned to Vietnam. Did you hear that from a cadre or a militiaman in your village? That is, as regards the assertion that those persons were sent to Vietnam.
និយាយប្រាប់ទេ
I heard from my fellow villagers that those people were evacuated to Vietnam because the Vietnamese were not allowed to live in Cambodia. That's what I heard from fellow villagers.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Madam Witness. I have no further questions for the witness, Mr. President. I believe there was an error in the French, and perhaps I should put the question to the witness again. Madam, you heard from the elderly persons in the village that the Vietnamese did not have the right to live in Cambodia. Is that what you stated, or it was an error in the interpretation?
ជាជន
Those who were evacuated were sent to live in Vietnam. That's only what I said. I did not say anything else. I said those who were evacuated because they were Vietnamese, so they needed to live in their country.
Parfait. Je vous remercie. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Perfect. Thank you. I thank you, witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
ជាបន្តទៅនេះអមផ្ដល់វេទិកាជូនទៅក្រុមសហវិទ្យាការពីក្តីដំបូងនេះផ្ដល់វេទិកាទៅក្រុមសហវិទ្យាការពីក្តីលោកនួនជាដើម្បីមានឱកាសសួរដេញដោលចំពោះសាក្សីរូបនេះមានបញ្ហាបកប្រែភាសាលោកអរុន
Co-defense counsel for Nun Chia, you may now proceed. President, now I give the floor to Defense Counsel for the accused Nun Chia. You now may proceed with the questions.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Madam Witness. I have not many questions that I would like to put to you, only a few. I would like to start with the following question. you were born in 1953. That means that you were 17 years old in 1970. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In the period between 1970 and 75, did you ever travel outside of your village? Did you, for instance, ever go to Phnom Penh between 70 and 75?
I did not leave my village during that time. I only live in my village on Long Tria.
Did you have family in Phnom Penh or Takeo, for instance?
No, I did not have.
Did you know what happened outside of your village between 1970 and 75? For instance, with people from Vietnamese ethnicity?
I did not know about that. I knew only about the evacuation of those people, but I did not know about what happened outside the village.
Have you ever heard your mother speak about mass executions of Vietnamese in 1970, or detention, arrest of many Vietnamese in 1970? A campaign with words against Vietnamese. Did you hear anything about that?
I did not know about that.
Let me go back to what you said on Thursday at 14 hours 33 minutes. The question is, I think it was a question from the National Co-Prosecutor, can you tell the court how the base people regarded Vietnamese people? Were there any differences in treatment on the Vietnamese people before 1975 and after 1975? And your answer is, I quote, before 75 we had a normal relationship. Later on people were sorted out and Vietnamese people were sorted during the time. End of quote. Now when you gave that answer on Thursday, did you mean, or did you limit your answer specifically only to people of Vietnamese origin in your village?
Ethnic Vietnamese and ethnic Khmer had no trouble in their relationship. When the ethnic Vietnamese were taken out, the ethnic Khmer also did not know much about what happened to them.
But when you gave your answer last Thursday to the question relating to the treatment of Vietnamese before 75, you were only limiting your answer to what you know that happened in your village. Is that correct?
ក្នុងភូមិក៏គ្មាន
In my village, there was also no strange event taking place.
Just to be sure, you have never heard of mass executions of Vietnamese during the Lon Nol regime. Is that correct?
Yes, I did not hear about it because it was not something to do with ordinary people, because ordinary people were busy with their living.
Let me give you one example. The mass execution of 800 Vietnamese laborers whose bodies were thrown in the Basak River in 1970. Have you ever heard of such an event?
No, I did not hear about it. As I told you that I was an ordinary people, so I thought only about how to earn a living for my family, and I was also fearful about the bombing at that time.
Have you ever heard on the radio that the Lon Nol government admitted to arresting some 30,000 Vietnamese and jailing 7,000 of them under the suspicion of treason?
No, I did not hear about that because my family was poor. We did not have a radio.
So I presume you also never heard anything of a mass execution of Vietnamese in Tak Kieu before 1975?
I did not hear about it.
Une requête, Monsieur le Président. Peut-on avoir
I would like to make an application, Mr. President. Can we have the references of the documents that my colleague is relying on to put these questions to the witness?
But of course, Mr. President, in accordance with the practice, I was first asking open questions, and then later on I would refer to my source. Allow me one last question, and then I will refer to where I have my knowledge from. Have you ever heard of anti-Chinese campaigns in Phnom Penh before '75? People of Chinese descent being threatened with mass execution. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I did not. I did not know at all.
Mr. President, I was referring to a book from someone whom the court considers that she is an expert, the book of Elizabeth Becker, more specifically that is E3/20, ERN English 00237829 and 30, Khmer 002322165 and 66, and French 00638396 and 97, in which the author discusses the anti-Vietnamese pogroms, the anti-Vietnamese campaigns of Lon Nol mass executions, mass detention, and a threat to the Chinese of having the same fate as the Chinese in Indonesia in '65, where they were massively executed by a pro-Western government in Indonesia. That's where I have my questions from. But I understand, Madam Witness, that you do not know anything about the treatment of the Vietnamese before 1975, correct?
No, I did not know about this.
Have you ever heard of something called, or a magazine or a paper called Revolutionary Flag?
No, I never saw it. I lived in the countryside and I never saw it.
Have you ever, between 75 and 79, listened to Radio Phnom Penh?
Of course not. During the regime, people were not allowed to know anything about the news.
But Radio Phnom Penh, I think, was the official broadcast organ of the Democratic Kampuchea government, so I think it was allowed for people to listen to Radio Phnom Penh. Did you ever listen to the radio, or did you know someone who listened to the radio, to Radio Phnom Penh more specifically?
No, I did not, as I said. In each family, we were only thinking of feeding our family members. We did not think of politics. We were striving to earn the living for my children. There were 7 children that I had. 2 passed away. So my main focus is to provide food to the children. After the end of the regime, I strived my best to feed my family members, mainly my children.
I understand, Madam Witness. Is it then fair for me to say that the only encounter you ever had with functionaries of the Democratic Kampuchea government is, or are your interactions with the local cadres from your village? Are they the only representatives of the Democratic Kampuchea government that you spoke to or that you had contact with?
I only interacted with the cadres in my village.
So would it then be fair for me to say that you at the time had no idea what the policy was of either the Democratic Kampuchea government or the Communist Party of Kampuchea versus the Vietnamese?
Yes, that is correct. I did not know anything about that.
Madam Witness, in your written record of interview, you refer to something that you call, quote unquote, the events of Sao Pim. Literally, you say on English page 00235511, Khmer 00233295, sorry, 96, and French 00250600. As for me, I had to pull and transplant rice seedlings, make fermented fish, smoke fish, mill rice and pound rice according to the season. About 1 or 2 years later there were the events of Sao Pim and the defeated soldiers and the wives of the former Lon Nol soldiers, along with those with tendencies, were rounded up and sent to the center and disappeared. And my question is specifically about the events of Sao Pim. What did you mean when you said that to the investigators, the events of Sao Pim?
After the events of Sao Pim, that's what it was known. People or the soldiers who ran back to the village were called to return, and those with the tendencies as well as the new people were called to attend the re-education. That's all I know.
Who was Sao Pim, Madam Witness?
I did not know who he was, I only heard of his name.
Do you remember what you heard about his name?
People in the village talked about him, about the confusing situation at the time, and I did not know anything else besides that.
And do you remember what the villagers were speaking about? What did they say about Sao Pim? Do you recall?
They did not say anything else. The event took place and died down, and nobody knew anything else.
Do you recall in which sector and in which zone your village was situated between 75 and 79?
It was sector 24.
And which zone do you remember?
No, I don't. I only know that it was in sector 24.
Have you ever heard of someone called Heng Samrin?
I only heard of his name. I did not know his face.
And do you remember what you heard about him between 75 and 79 or thereafter?
No, I do not know anything else about him. As I said, I only heard of his name.
Do you know whether there was ever any fighting going on between military troops of the Democratic Kampuchea regime government and Vietnamese troops? In other words, did you ever hear the sounds of war, guns shooting, cannons shooting, tanks shooting each other? Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, I did not.
My last question, Madam Witness, is my understanding correct that you yourself have never witnessed in front of your eyes anyone being killed? You never saw any actual killing of anybody, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, since I never saw it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you, Council. It is now convenient to have a short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties during the break time, and invite her back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
Sure.